This story was shared on our /Let's Not Meet, posted by Reddit user Unlikely State 5543. The title is Christian the Christian. Before I start, I would like to say that this story is mostly about my mom and her encounters with our weird neighbor. We had just moved out of an apartment into a beautiful home in a new neighborhood. Christian and his family were the first to greet us in the neighborhood. Him and his family were very friendly and warm towards us. Christian and my mom exchanged phone numbers, and he sent a long text greeting himself and his family and their religious beliefs. Side note, he oddly looks like and reminds me of the Trinity Killer from Dexter. Let's just say me and my family are quite the opposite of being religious. He remained friendly and warm for the next few months, and his daughter often played with my younger sister. His true colors started to come out when a group of friendly solicitors were going door to door. They were African American. My mom was sitting on the front porch enjoying the nice spring weather. She saw them approach Christian's door, and as soon as he answers the door, he looks petrified, like an ancestor from the dead knocked on his door. He starts screaming and yelling at them frantically, saying, "I'm going to call the cops. Get off my lawn." They left, and my mom apologized for his sad and disgusting behavior. About a month later, my mom was sitting on the back porch smoking. She hears Christian walk out onto his balcony. My mom could see him perfectly the way it was positioned. They lock eye contact. Christian then proceeds to pull his junk out and start peeing off the side of his balcony. He looks at my mom and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you out here. You know how it is living with 3 kids." I heard my mom yell at him, "What the fuck, Christian, you knew I was out here." She walked in and started freaking out about how Christian just flashed her. Over the next couple of months, my mom refused to interact with him, but my sister and his daughter still played. One day my mom noticed that Christian's kids had been sitting in his car in his driveway for 3 hours. My mom walked up to their daughter and asked what was going on. She proceeded to say, "Mom and Dad just need some space right now." It was mid-August, and the car's AC wasn't doing much. She invited them to come over and play, and they were over until Christian and his wife were done needing space. Over the next year, we didn't hear much from Christian or see him very often. We ended up having to move in with my mom's friend that lived 2 houses down from Christian. We will give the friend a name. It will be Tammy, just to respect her privacy. A few weeks after we moved in, Tammy told us that Christian walked up to her house and demanded that he talk to her. He told Tammy that she should absolutely not let my mom move in at all because she is a meth smoker and drug dealer. The most my mom does is smoke weed. So does Tammy. They smoke with each other every night. So Tammy obviously knew this was straight BS. She told Christian that he is lying and is wrong. Christian denies and says, "I know what meth smells like, and she always has brown sketchy men coming around. I know what I see. You must believe me. My father is Hispanic and comes by my mom's house every once in a while to check up on me and my sister. My mom was also dating a black man during this time. Also, how does Christian know what meth smells like? Maybe he was smoking it and got paranoid and blamed it on my mom." Tammy told Christian he must apologize to my mom because he is very obviously lying, and he refuses. A week later, his wife talks to my mom and apologized for her husband's behavior and says he's going through a lot at home. Christian left my mom alone after that for about 9 to 10 months. One day, me, my mom, her boyfriend, Tammy, and her sons were all sitting in Tammy's backyard enjoying the blooming weather and smoking a few joints. Christian comes up to the gate where we could all see him, and he was obviously extremely drunk. He starts sobbing and profusely apologizing to my mom about what he said about the meth and him lying. My mom says it's whatever, it's in the past. But he starts demanding my mom to accept his apology because he is a Christian and it was wrong of him to judge and lie about her. She once again rejects and does not accept his apology. He pulls out his wallet and grabs every last bill he has in his wallet and throws it at my mom, trying to bribe her into accepting his apology. She says no, throws it back at him, and tells him to leave. He finally leaves and cusses her out for not accepting his apology. We never saw him around again. We moved out of Tammy's a few months later and never had to deal with him again. I hope you enjoyed the previous story, because this next one reminds us that sometimes the most disturbing discoveries are made inside our own homes. This story comes from our /scary stories, posted by Reddit user Donovan221. It's titled, I found my son's notebook. I don't think me and my wife are safe. My son turned 14 recently. He used to be such a happy kid. He loved playing outside, playing video games, hanging out with his friends. Just a completely normal preteen. I think he was around 12 or 13 when things started to change. He spent more time inside. Maybe he was playing video games, but I wouldn't know because he'd always be locked away in his room. He started dressing in all black. I asked him why he didn't like his old superhero shirts anymore, and it broke my heart when his response was, "Superheroes are stupid," before he shut his door in my face. I talked to my wife about it, but I think she was in denial. Boys will be boys, she said. Everyone has to grow up at some point. It hurt to hear, mainly because part of me knew. I saw the warning signs. How he seemed to be attracted to darkness. How the light in his room never seemed to be on. It was always dirty in there. Empty energy drink cans. Snack wrappers everywhere. I tried to look past it. I tried to believe that this was just a phase. But the black metal angry, hate-filled music that always blasted from that room was enough to drive me to the brink of madness. I tried my best to ignore it, but he was disrupting our peace. I wanted to approach it in a helpful, positive way. I'd always ask if he'd care to join me on a walk in the park. Maybe we could catch a movie together. Hell, maybe we could even play catch in the backyard. He rejected every approach. It quite literally seemed like he hated me. Hated us. Dinners were awkward and almost silent. We tried talking to him about school, but he was so avoidant. We found out why that was when the report cards came in. He was failing nearly every single class. It caused a lot of arguments. If he failed, it meant we failed. And us failing is what I think caused a lot of the tension. We became more strict. We set bedtimes. No video games until his schoolwork was done. No more energy drinks, and no more seclusion. We insisted on him spending more time with us, whether he liked it or not. We didn't know what it was that was causing this change in him, but I'd be damned if I was going to stand by and watch him slip further and further away. I couldn't stop thinking about who he used to be. That laugh that didn't seem to come around as often. Those Christmas mornings when he looked at me and my wife with nothing but love and affection. That love seemed to turn to hatred after we tightened our grip on him, though. I wanted to blame it on hormones, but his hatefulness exceeded normal teenage angst. He started cursing at us, screaming until his vocal cords would tear. We even had a few physical altercations, because I wasn't going to be disrespected in my own house. Grounding wouldn't work. He liked to be alone. It was like a reward to him. So instead, I made him do yard work. Cut the grass, weed whack, whatever I could think of. That's when I think something truly broke within him. He'd act cheerful, but his words were full of resentment. I can't wait for you to die so I can have the house. I wish you understood how much I truly hate you. When I turn 18, you two will never see me again. He said these things like he was discussing breakfast, like it was completely normal. At this point, my wife was starting to see what I saw. Every now and again, we'd catch him scribbling in a notebook. Anytime he saw us watching, he'd either put it away or groan and take it to his room with him. One night in particular, though, I woke up at around 2 in the morning. It felt like I was being watched, like my body knew. My eyes scanned the room, and there he was standing in the corner of the room in front of our bed, watching us and scribbling in that notebook. "Go back to sleep, Daddy," he giggled. He hadn't called me that since he was 5 or 6. It felt like there was a stack of cinder blocks on my chest. I asked what he was doing, and he didn't respond. I asked him to go back to bed, and he sighed like I was inconveniencing him and stomped out of the room. That night was the last straw. I intended to look into counseling as soon as I could the next day. I did what I promised myself I'd do and set up the appointment. But when I went to his room to tell him about it, I found the room empty. It smelled musty in there. The sheets were mangled and balled up on the bed. Trash littered the ground and his nightstand. But his desk was completely clean. On it rested that notebook he'd been scribbling in recently. I couldn't help myself. I had to know. I had to see what he was writing. I knew it was about us, but nothing could have prepared me for what I read. He detailed his plan to kill us. I don't even want to write what he said he'd do. It was graphic. It was gruesome. And it was in that same messy handwriting that he never seemed to grow out of. My jaw dropped more and more with each paragraph. My heart raced faster and faster. But before I could finish, I heard a toilet flushing in the hallway. I couldn't move. I was frozen in shock. I heard his black combat boots approaching. I heard the door push open. And I heard that giggle that I hadn't heard in what felt like years. It was malicious this time. More sinister. I couldn't face him. The notebook shook in my hands as I gripped it tighter and tighter. "Daddy," he whimpered, "aren't I a good writer?" The most terrifying people are the ones living under the same roof. This story comes from our /nosleep, posted by Reddit user Jeg33. It's titled, "I Don't Know My Roommate." It started 2 weeks ago. He just appeared. I was doing the dishes when a person came up behind me, set a plate in the sink, and said, "Sorry, I just finished eating." I live alone. I turned around, and there was this basic-looking guy, eyeglasses, brown hair, suit, and tie, looking like he was about to head off to work. I obviously freaked out. I had never met this man before in my entire life, and here he was with one of my plates in the kitchen of my apartment, acting like nothing was wrong. He then looked at me like I was the crazy one. "Whoa, what's wrong? Did I scare you that badly?" I insisted he leave. Then I grabbed a knife to defend myself, and he backed up. "Hey, just calm down. Hold on, let me go get someone. Just breathe for a second, okay?" He quickly booked it out the door. He was so fast I could barely get out myself in time to see him turn down the hall. I sat there in shock for a few minutes before I grabbed my phone and went to call the police. But then the landlord came and knocked on the door. "Hey, Tim said that you threatened him with a knife. Is everything all right?" Tim lurked behind the landlord, worry plastered across his face. I said Tim, whoever the hell he was, should be kicked out for trespassing. The landlord looked at Tim and said, "Goodness, what did you say to her this time?" Tim responded with a nervous chuckle before answering, "I guess I should have given her my dishes sooner." They both shared a laugh while I stood there completely befuddled. I asked the landlord, "Who is this? And what the hell is going on?" And he answered, Your roommate?" I have never met Tim in my life. Not once. Not even on the street. But somehow he has become my roommate. Moreover, he says he's been living with me for 3 months. Obviously, that should be easy to disprove. However, Any evidence that he was lying simply did not exist. First, his name was listed on the paperwork for the apartment signature and all dated the same day I arrived here. Second, I asked the neighbors. They all know him. More than that, they love him. And the thing that scares me the most, the thing I cannot explain, is that he has a room in my apartment. After the argument with Tim and my landlord, I wanted to go into my bedroom for some privacy and to try to make sense of things. That's when I saw a new door in my apartment. I opened it, and it was a bedroom with a guitar in the corner, posters on the walls, and various items scattered around. Some things were even covered in dust that had to have been at least a week old. There was no sign any of this had been built recently. There was nothing to indicate this person wasn't my roommate, except for my own memories. I left and stayed at my best friend's house. I told her that some strange man had been living with me, and that no one seemed to think it was strange. I told her he had a room, that his name was on the paperwork, and that he needed to leave. I was an absolute mess. She said, "Are you sure you're not talking about Tim?" Seemingly as a joke. I stared at her in disbelief. "You were talking about Tim?" she said. "Lord, you haven't treated him like this since he had a crush on you in high school." I ran upstairs, tore open her closet, got down on my knees, and dug around until I found our yearbook. I flipped through to our class, and then I saw it, a younger-looking Tim, right beside people I actually knew. I stayed with my friend for a few days, mostly locked up in her guest room. After doing some research, I found him online. He has an Instagram and a Facebook. More than that, he has a LinkedIn showing his resume. He is a guitarist for a band I've never heard of called the Thought Forms. I looked them up, and they have music on most platforms. I felt like I was going crazy. I decided that I needed to get to the bottom of this, so I moved back, and once I got my nerves steeled, I came home to him practicing guitar in the living room. The moment I saw his face, I wanted to call the police or someone, anyone to please just take him away. But I've already called. They don't believe me either. All I did was glare at him, and he stared back at me, mumbling a few apologies for whatever I did. I lived with him for a couple of days. I followed him, and everywhere I went, people knew him. He had an entire life, even though it feels like he appeared out of thin air. The bar where his band was playing knew him and said they had booked the gig 2 weeks ago. There is not a single crack or flaw in any way, shape, or form in his life. It's like everyone has implanted memories of him, and for some reason I didn't get the memo. I'm talking to him more now. He laughs and jokes, but whenever he thinks I'm not looking, his face goes blank like he's taking a breath between scenes in a stage play. The same thing happened when I caught him awake last night. He was sitting in the living room, completely emotionless, dressed for work at 3:14 a.m., staring at the front door. I took a photo of it, but when I checked it later to post it, the photo was gone. I'm worried for my safety. Every night I stay in that apartment, I know he's watching me. Every night I hear the door creak open, and I know that if I react to him, he's going to try something. It's like he's mad that I don't agree. He's a person I've always known, someone I went to school with, whose music I listened to, and who's gotten drinks with me and my friends before. And the worst part is, I'm starting to remember him too. Little bits and pieces of the lies I've been fed have been appearing in my mind when I look at him. Memories of us hanging out, talking by lockers, and songs I've never heard before playing on a loop in my brain. I'm scared. I'm putting this post out there to try and get help, and to help myself remember that he's not real. I'll make another update post soon when I figure something out. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I have to do something. I just hope this post doesn't disappear. I hope you enjoyed that last story, because this next one begins with something that shouldn't be possible. Tonight's story comes from our /scary stories, posted by Reddit user Donovan221. The title is, My Girlfriend Came Home from a Trip She Never Took. I thought she was just acting weird at first. For some clarification, my girlfriend had been planning a trip to California for the last 4 months. Normally, I would have gone with her, but it was for her grandmother's birthday. She was old, and this could have quite possibly been my girlfriend's last chance to take a trip with her. She had spent those 4 months meticulously planning, as she always did, and the week before the trip, she must have had at least 5 full bags packed for her week-long venture. You can never be too careful, she always told me. She was always the planning type, mapping things out, going over every possibility. It was one of the things I admired about her. She hated when things did not go the way they were supposed to. That is why, on the day of her trip, when I woke up to find her still lying in bed with me long after her early morning flight, I almost panicked. I shook her awake frantically, and her eyes slowly rolled open. She groggily asked why I was waking her, and when I told her the time, she did not react how I expected her to. Instead of panicking herself, or even calling her mom to let her know she missed the flight, she simply rolled back over and shut her eyes again. Oh yeah, she groaned. The flight. Honestly, it should be okay. Be okay. I responded, a bit flabbergasted. Don't you think you should at least call and let them know? She grumbled a lazy, No, everything should be fine, before she began snoring, something else that was completely new for her. I did not know what else to do. I could not force her. I was just shocked, I guess. I just thought that maybe she had already talked to her mom and grandma. Maybe something had come up, and she forgot to tell me. I just went to work like everything was normal. When I came back, she was still at home. She looked absent. I found her sitting on the couch, staring at a black TV screen. When I greeted her, she snapped out of it. Honey, I'm so glad you're home, she chirped. Tell me everything that happened at work today. We spent the whole night chatting, but it was like her mind was somewhere else. I would catch her drifting off into outer space. She thought too long about her responses. Her speech pattern was slower than normal, even though her face was one of excitement as we talked. I figured that something must have happened with her grandmother, so I asked her, Hon, did anything happen to make you not want to go on your trip? She stared at me for a while. Her smile disappeared. Her face was blank, but only for a split second before lighting up again. No, not that I know of, she responded cheerily. Why do you ask? Just wondering, I replied cautiously. The next few days were weird. She never seemed to want to leave the house. I mean, not that I could blame her. She had already taken off work for the trip, but I figured she would at least want to go to the park or something. It was one of our favorite things to do together. She also was not eating much. Every night I would cook for us, but she kept insisting she was not hungry. Must have been a lie, though, because on some of those nights, long after we had gone to bed, I would find her in the kitchen, completely surrounded by food. Cereal boxes would be ripped open with their contents scattered across the floor. Granola bar wrappers, spilled milk, raw rice and beans. It was concerning, to say the least. By the end of the week, something hit me that I had not caught before. It was like a dim light bulb lit up over my head, and I approached her timidly. Honey, I inquired carefully. Yes, sweet boy of mine. She replied lovingly, sitting on the edge of our bed, staring at a wall. I gulped a bit. Whatever happened to your bags? Did you unpack them? I haven't seen your toothbrush or shampoo or anything anywhere. She did not respond. She just kept staring, like the wall was the TV. Finally, she slowly turned around, and her hollow eyes met mine. Honey, she whispered gleefully. You know that's none of your business." She did not seem mad, but she refused to talk to me for the next 2 days. She did not even want to sleep in the same bed as me. Of course, I would have felt wrong making her sleep on the couch, so I just let her have the bed while I wallowed in my own confusion. It was not until the night before she was supposed to return from the trip that she let me sleep with her again, and even then, she slept with her back toward me. I woke up in the middle of the night to a ruckus coming from the kitchen. I stepped out of my room and noticed that the kitchen light was on. It sounded like an animal was loose in there, like it was in the process of devouring something. Growls, the wet sound of chewing. But as I approached, the sound suddenly stopped. I froze in my tracks for a few seconds, debating whether or not I should continue before ultimately deciding to keep going. Only, when I took that last step, I heard my girlfriend's voice. It was angrier than I had ever heard her. More hostile, like she was trying to send a message. "Go back to bed," she screamed. The house was silent for a moment. I argued with myself internally about whether or not to listen or check on her. I decided to listen, and the moment I began making my way back to the bedroom, the noises started up again. I do not know how long I lay there, staring up at the ceiling, trying to tell myself that everything was normal before falling back asleep. But I know that I woke up alone the next morning. The bathroom was empty. The halls were empty. The house was empty. I kept calling out and received no response. But when I entered the kitchen, that is when panic really set in. There was blood everywhere. Not from my girlfriend, but from the raw meat that was scattered across the floor. Chicken, steak, pork, everything. Everything had been nearly completely eaten. I thought back to the night before, and my heart started to pound. I felt dizzy. I felt like I was losing it. I tried to take a seat to calm myself, but before I could, the front door opened. "Honey," my girlfriend sang. "I'm home. Can you come help me with these bags? I've got so much to tell you." I hope you enjoyed the previous story, because this next one reminds us that sometimes the scariest encounters don't happen in crowded cities. They happen in places where no one is around to help. Tonight's story comes from our /Let's Not Meet, posted by Reddit user alarming_job5460. It's titled, "The Guy Who Checked If My Family's Country House Was Empty When I Was 14. I am from a big city, but when I was a kid, my family always spent weekends at my grandparents' small farm out in the countryside. I used to think the middle of nowhere was totally safe, but this messed me up. I was 14 at the time. My parents and grandparents left to go to a bigger town to buy a bunch of stuff, because the next day, the whole family was going to come over to celebrate my granddad's birthday. I do not remember how long they were going to be gone, just that it would take a while. I stayed behind by myself to play video games and totally lost track of time. The place was super isolated down a long dirt road, so it was always very quiet. But at some point, the dogs started barking like crazy toward the front gate. They sounded really mad, which was not normal. I looked out the window and saw a car stopped at our gate. I do not remember the color because it was covered in thick red dust from the road, but I knew the exact model. It was an old, beat-up sedan. I recognized the shape instantly because my older cousin had that exact same car model at the time. A guy got out, opened the gate, we never locked it during the day, and started walking toward the house. I went to the front veranda to see what he wanted. I thought he was just lost. But when he got close, he did not look lost at all. He stopped near the steps, looked me up and down, and then looked straight at the empty space where my dad usually parked his truck. He asked if my dad was home, saying something about a fence job or some repairs. I do not remember his exact words, just the excuse. Since I was a city kid, I knew better than to say I was alone in the middle of nowhere. I lied and told him my dad was inside sleeping and I would go get him. The guy just stood there. He did not move or say anything. He tried to look past my shoulder through the open door into the dark house. Then he looked at me and said, "Are you sure? I don't see his truck." My stomach completely dropped. He knew I was alone. I just said, "Yeah, it's parked in the back shed." And before he could say anything else, I walked inside, slammed the door, and locked it. We did not have cell service out there back then, and no internet. I was terrified. I grabbed my air rifle that I used for plinking targets around the farm, ran into the bathroom, locked the door, and just sat on the floor waiting. I knew it could not do much against a grown man, but it was the only thing I had to defend myself. I do not know how long I stayed there, but it was pure torture. The house went completely silent, and I could not hear if he was walking around the veranda or trying to get in through a back window. Finally, I heard his car start up and speed away on the dirt road. I waited a while longer before I even dared to open the bathroom door. When my family got back, I told them everything. My dad was furious. My granddad called some neighbors, and it turns out that same old sedan had been seen idling near other houses around that time. A few days later, one of those places was completely robbed when the owners were away. But here's the worst part. Years later, my granddad called my dad to tell him about a new story from that same region. The police had finally caught a duo of thieves who were doing armed home invasions on isolated farms. They were not just stealing things when houses were empty. These two guys were actually tying families up, beating them, and holding them hostage for hours to steal trucks, tools, and cash. Sadly, since most of these farms were located so far away from everything, it was extremely difficult for the police to catch them or even get there in time. The news article online showed the photos of the two guys and the car the police took from them. It was the exact same beat-up sedan. When I saw the face of one of the guys arrested, my blood ran cold. It was the exact same face, the guy who stood on my grandparents' veranda looking for my dad while his partner was probably waiting for him in the car. My family was completely shocked. My mom actually started crying because she realized how close I came to a nightmare. If I had not lied, or if I had not locked that door immediately, I do not even want to think about what those two guys would have done to a 14-year-old kid alone in the middle of nowhere. And that brings us to the end of today's stories. If you made it this far, thank you for spending part of your time here. I hope you enjoyed today's collection and maybe found yourself looking over your shoulder once or twice. If you have a strange, unsettling, or unexplained experience of your own, feel free to share and mail your story to us at nightmarepassage5@gmail.com. Who knows? It might appear in a future video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another true horror story. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and whatever you do, don't ignore the things that go bump in the night. Good night.